So hello everyone and welcome back to another day in isolation in the greenhouse. You can probably tell I'm sounding a little bit more croaky than I was yesterday. Coughing still hasn't stopped and I'm feeling a little bit more under the weather than I was, but nonetheless I'm going absolutely mad sat indoors, so the greenhouse is where I want to be. The other thing that I'm really struggling with at the moment is I'm getting short of breath really easily, so even walking to the greenhouse or back to the house from the greenhouse, it takes me a few seconds to catch my breath again, which is abnormal for me. Although I'm not in the best of shape normally, I usually can manage a walk like that without getting short of breath. Anyway, so what I thought I would do today, yesterday we planted the strawberries and I also did the St. Patrick's Day potatoes. I did finish that video off this morning just because I ran out of light yesterday, hence the same t-shirt. It's not I'm wearing the same t-shirt 2 days in a row. So what I thought I would do first today is get on with some planting again. So what I'm going to do today, you may remember this one from last year, the kitchen garden set from Unwin Seeds. It was kind of mixed from it last year, so I moved house with it and it got damaged and yeah, it wasn't great. So what I've done this year, I've actually lined the bottom with some capillary matting just to help with watering of these, and I am going to replant them this year. So the seeds that I've got this year, I've got some basil, always really good, particularly if we're going to get a load of tomatoes grown. Some coriander, I know it's a love or hate type thing, I really like it and I quite like making curries and things and using coriander to flavour it, so that'll be quite useful. I've got oregano, again I quite like making pasta dishes and that sort of thing, and oregano is quite good for flavouring those. And then of course parsley. Where would our food be without the little green bits on the top, eh? Right, so my plan for those, I'm going to get these filled up with some of that compost mix that I showed you yesterday, and then we'll get planting. Right, so there we go, we've got some of that compost in these now. I've tamped it down a tiny little bit, but because it's got a lot of vermiculite in here, it's quite an airy soil, and there's a fair bit, I think it's peat compost that's in there, so it should be quite good at retaining the moisture. Got some labels because I always forget what I've planted in which pot, so I'm just going to put those in now, and then we can get planting. So as I said, the first one we've got is parsley. Get some of those out. Now, I'm not going to empty the entire packet of these because they tend to have a ridiculous number of seeds in. So this one, how many does it think it's got in it? 500. I don't need 500 parsley plants in there. But what I will probably do is plant some down at the allotment as well. But I'll also leave myself enough for a second sowing in these as well. So that's one thing I did find last year. What you can do with these is when they're growing, as you're cutting them away, add some more seeds, and then you kind of end up with a fairly continuous supply. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of them in there. There we go. So that's parsley. Next one, oregano. So again, this has got a massive number of seeds in. So this one has 1500 seeds, so definitely not having 1500 oregano plants. The seeds for the oregano are a lot smaller though, so I'm just going to sprinkle them in. There we go. And we can always thin these out as well if we get too many and it's a bit crowded, or even split them down and spread them across two pots. All right, coriander, as I said, the love or hate one. There is actually almost hate groups against coriander on Facebook, which I find quite funny. Oh, I think it's lovely. As I said, really good for flavouring curries and giving them a nice fresh taste. And these ones are much bigger seeds, as you can see there. So try and get an even spread of these seeds around. And then of course the firm favourite, which is basil, particularly if we're going to have lots of tomatoes growing as well. Apologies, you are going to get a lot of coughing on these videos over the next week, I feel. Try my best not to cough, but it seems a bit difficult at the moment, unfortunately. Right, yeah, and then so as we said, the basil. There we go. And all that we need to do on that is a little sprinkling of compost over the top of each one. Try not to make a mess as well. Okay, and I'm just going to tamp them down a bit just to make sure that the seeds have all got decent contact with the compost above and below, and they get sprouting. And then of course we'll have a little bit of a water as well. And like with all my other plants, what I will probably be doing with these as well is do a initial water like this, and then I'll try and water from the bottom just to avoid any damping off and stuff like that on the top. That way they can draw up as much or as little as they like as well. And all I do for that, because we've got the capillary matter in the bottom, I will just take one pot out and just give the bottom a good soaking in there. Go, and we'll just pop that back in there, and hopefully we'll have a nice little planter for kitchen herbs in coming weeks. So I'm going to leave that out here for the moment just because it is really nice and warm out here and they can get some decent sunlight. I think that was part of the issue that I had last year as well. The windowsill that was on in the old house wasn't the best for getting sunlight. It was quite shady for a lot of the day, whereas these are going to be going in the kitchen in this house, which does get a lot of sun during the day. It should hopefully keep them going quite well. I did consider actually having this mounted up on one of the walls in the greenhouse. I think if I can get hold of another one, I might well do that, and then we can have a second almost kitchen garden out here with lots of herbs that can be kind of interchangeable with the ones inside. So if the ones inside are getting a little low, we can swap them over. But I'll keep my eyes out and we'll see. So now we've done the little kitchen herb garden, I thought what I would do is just give you a quick show of how I organise my seedlings. So I've stolen the idea off of Muddy Boots, who uses the electrical tape, and just changed what I do with it a little bit. So I'll give you a quick show now, and I do favour the newspaper pots, which I started using last year. They work really well, although I didn't really get to plant a lot of them out because obviously I was off with the knackered back. So let's have a quick look. So this is what I do. I get the little newspaper pots. Obviously I've not planted anything in these yet. And then what I do is I label up the tray. So tray 1, and then I've got each row of them labelled up as well. Last year I managed to fit 8 into each of these trays, but it was a bit of a squeeze. So I've done 7 rows just to give it a bit more space this time. And then what I do is I have this little gardening journal, and I label down what is in each one. So I can have a tray full of the same plant if I want, or I can do a row of 5 or 2 rows, 3 rows, up to 7 rows in each tray. It saves a lot on the little plastic labels, which I want to try and avoid using as much as you can use them the next year. Usually you end up losing them or having the wrong ones or growing different varieties, and they end up going to waste. So I think this way the trays are reusable, and the worst thing that you can lose is a bit of tape off of them. Here we go. So I've started planting my stuff off in the trays. If we have a quick whip around, we can have a little look. So tray 1 is all planted up, and in that one we've got some purple sprouting broccoli, some kale Nero de Toscana, some Swiss chard bright lights, and then right at the end we've got some tumbling toms, which will go, well, certainly some of them will go on the little basket at the front of the shed, which was quite cool there last year. This one I did have from the Sutton's box, some of these peat pellets, which I've got ready to plant in. I'm going to leave them till tomorrow, just so they can dry out a little bit, and yeah, we'll plant that tomorrow. And then the other thing that I've done is I've planted a tray of spring onions as well. So spring onions that I have gone for are these white Lisbon. I've not grown these ones before, but they're apparently quick to grow. And as I said, the other seeds that we planted, we've got these Tumbling Tom Reds, which came down from £1.50 to 75p. The Swiss Chard Bright Lights, the Purple Sprout and Broccoli. I know this is something that Tony Smith's grown, and it's just been, you know, like a staple food almost, because it just carries on growing and growing. And then the kale, Nero to Toscana, which I think, again, from what I remember, Tony grew some of that, and it was quite prolific. The other thing that I've also noticed while I've been in here is the temperatures are getting quite high in here. So we've had 26.6 as the max in here, which is about 10 degrees hotter than outside, and the temperature has been 4.7 at its lowest, even though it's been pretty chilly outside. So it's all going well. So thank you once again for watching day 2 of my isolation. Again, if anyone out there is also isolating, let us know what you're doing to keep yourself busy and stop you going insane. Yeah, and I will see you again tomorrow. So thanks for watching, and happy allotmenting. Take care.